Welcome to Cyber Conversations, the show where it's okay to agree to disagree. My name's Josh. Today we got Matthew, Darin, Bob, Cara, and Rachel, and we're going to be talking about the Hunger Games. We're going to be talking about these for the next, including today, 5 weeks. We're going to cover all the movies. A handful of us have also read the books, including me. I'm very excited about this because this is a huge thing. I've watched this many, many times, and I've read the books. It's been a while. I'll admit it's been a while since I've read the books the last time, but I have read them. So I want to hear what everyone else thinks. And I also definitely want to hear what Darin thinks because he's never seen them or read them.
You've never watched the Hunger Games prior to this?
Nope, never touched the books either.
Oh.
So,
well, that's most people don't read.
And I'm not sure.
you would have been sure if I did, yeah.
Well, I'm not sure, but my theory is some people were turned off by the idea of this movie. If they didn't know what was going to happen or what the story was really about, all they heard was it's basically battle royale. A bunch of kids put in an arena killing each other, and a lot of people would be like, "I don't want to watch that. You're crazy. What kind of sicko are you to watch that?" But of course, we know that it's not about that. That's a big focus in the first book, but that's not really the meat and potatoes of the story.
The book was the big driver, obviously, for this. So I think question to have everybody, kind of start with is reading the book. Rachel, did you read the book?
No, I haven't read them.
Okay, all right. But what was your first reaction to seeing the movie?
Well, when the first one came out, I think I was in fourth grade or something. So I did not see it for a while. But I did hear about it a lot back then. And I don't know, I thought it sounded interesting, but when I first saw it, I loved it immediately. And then I think I got to watch the second one right after at that time.
Yeah. So, your dad didn't let you watch those kind of movies, huh? I see how that is. Yeah.
No,
actually,
my mom did.
Yeah.
Oh, your mom.
That was your mother. Yeah. I was all for I wanted to show her Jaws when she was in grade school, but she wouldn't let me.
Yeah.
I read the books after I knew that the movies were coming out. My friend Chase, shout out to Chase. He was the one that actually told me about the Hunger Games, and he's like, "It's a really big deal, and they're really gonna." And you know how Chase is, Dad.
Yes, I do.
He was like, "It's a really big deal, and they're really struggling to find the main character, Katniss." I was like, "What the hell kind of name is Katniss?" And then I read the books, and it obviously made more sense. But I've read all 5. Is it 5 now? Yeah, 5 books. So they're all excellent. First one obviously feels like a first book, and kind of I don't know if it's her debut novel, but they definitely get stronger as they go on. And I would say that's probably the same for the films.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say it's the easiest read just because it's told in first person. So if you're not, a lot of people are expecting third person omniscient when they're reading books, and this is all told from Katniss's point of view. I walk through, I walk through the hall and I do this. So,
right.
I don't know about the other books, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and Sunrise on the Reaping. I haven't read those two.
I read them through high school, actually. And I had always been talking to my mom about the movies. She's like, "No, you need to read the books before you watch the movies." So I was made to read the books and then watch the movie. So I did that through all of the first 4 films, 3 books. I haven't read the most recent 2. I haven't read Sunrise on the Reaping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read. I started Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But I did watch the movie of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And I definitely want to read the book since watching the movie. Knowing the difference between the book for the first movie, knowing the differences and stuff.
Yeah.
I think reading the book would be much more beneficial for me.
Yeah.
As usual, there's a lot of stuff that is unfortunately by necessity cut from the movie just because they can't jam it all in.
Darin has never read the books.
Never read the
Darin,
books.
what was your thought on the movie? You watched it for the first time.
I just watched it a few hours ago, so it's fresh in my mind. It hits you in the gut, every major set piece, Every major scene is, I mean, it's thinly veiled political commentary for sure. And you know how they say, whenever you either read or rewatch media at different points in your life, different circumstances in the world, it hits differently. It means something different to you. It shows you, it highlights something different, even though the book or the media itself hasn't changed. The world and yourself have changed. That's kind of how I felt, even though I knew I hadn't seen this movie before or read the books, but I knew of this event when it happened in 2016 was this movie. And so it kind of passed me by, but when I watch it this time, I'm like, yeah, this is still poignant. This is still relevant. This is still has something to say about the here and now. Aspects of the world, closer to home have changed. And, I hate that we say we're not going to talk about politics on this channel, but this movie is nothing but politics. So it's kind of hard to say what we think about this movie without comparing it to what we feel in our lives today.
Yeah, and it was a huge cultural, thing, because the books were already super, super huge back then. And like I was thinking about what Rachel said, which is like she was younger, and it was like, and Cara obviously was younger, and it's like, I think it's interesting, and I don't know if either one of you want to speak about it, but like in your age group back then, like how big was the Hunger Games? What, like amongst your friends and stuff like that? Just give us a little bit of that nostalgia, because even though it was 2012,
were you wearing the pins and having your hairstyle and all that stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Look, yeah, exactly. I was gonna say she's got it styled up today. Everyone's wearing their hair like this now, Darin.
Yeah, I'm doing the Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, you are. I'm going to rename everybody on the screen. Darin's President Snow. No, but like Rachel, like I know you didn't see it, but I'm sure the kids were talking about the books. Cara, the same thing. Matthew, you too. It's like you're the youngins in the crowd. It's like, what was it? What was it like back then? And then you knew the movie was coming out.
It was like, I remember everyone started talking about it in class before I heard about it anywhere else, like before I saw a trailer or a commercial. And I was like, I had no idea what that could be from the name of it. I was so confused. And then when I like heard more about it, I was really, really jealous. And literally, I remember the next, like all throughout middle school for me, there was always like 10 girls that would dress as Katniss, like always.
Really?
And yeah, it was like very huge.
Were there like death matches on the playground, and instead of jumping rope and leapfrog, it was
there was
for the knives and bolts and bows and arrows and stuff.
There's the one kid who's the designated Effie Trinket, like going, okay, pulling names out of it. Everybody's like, put your names in there.
We had a huge game. It was like an online, but we used to play it during class. That was like the Hunger Games website, and you would put in different names. So you'd put in like whoever, celebrities or like YouTubers was big. You could put in like your friends, your teachers. And then it would be like they put it all in different districts, and it would tell you a story of like what happens to each person. It was crazy. We would do that in class
Hunger
all
Games
the time.
Mad
And, like,
Libs.
yeah, literally, like in middle school and high school, we loved doing that in class.
Yeah.
The reason I got into Hunger Games, I never saw any trailers, never saw any commercials. I didn't know what the heck it was. And then two of my friends in high school, and I'm about to show a real vulnerable pic in a minute, but they wanted to dress up as the Hunger Games characters. And so I was like, oh, well, I want to be Katniss. That's all I've ever heard about. And they're like, actually, no, you're going to dress up as, what's her name? Cressida?
Right. Yeah. She had half her head shaved. She was the director.
So they were like, yeah, we want to do
Well, you're
this.
right. I'm sorry. She wasn't a stylist. She was the newscaster. I'm sorry.
But they were like, oh, we want to dress up as this for Halloween. And so one of my friends dressed up as Haymitch. My best friend dressed up as Katniss. Her friend dressed up as Effie Trinket. And then my little brother, not Peeta.
Not Peeta.
Gale.
Not Peeta, Gale. Thank you, yeah. But It was bad.
Wow. Make sure you send me that so I can actually
will.
Yeah,
like
we
have
can
it pop
actually
up on the
put that up.
No. We're not
Well,
doing
you
that.
can't show it right there. I need that
Oh, he's gonna
copy.
see it.
No, seriously,
Okay.
send it. Yeah, text it to me so I
I
can.
will.
Yeah, we got to
I can
put
have
that
it
up.
By
pop up.
the
'Cause
way,
the people,
it's 2016.
Nice.
That
The
was
first time
2016.
that's when you did that. Yeah.
That's when, so I had read the first one and Catching Fire before we did this. I had no idea who Cressida was. I was like, I haven't gotten to
Right.
that book yet. And they're like, oh, this is what she looks like. So they put cornrows in my hair and they
nice.
were tight as hell. And then we did like, it was like not chalk, but like oil paint or whatever, oil
Do the little
face
green
paint
things.
to do the vines. Yeah, her
Yeah,
tattoos.
Yeah.
It was a crazy costume. But that was the first time I heard about it.
So Katniss Everdeen, main character, obviously, of this. Jennifer Lawrence was cast as Katniss. I read the book and I did both the audio book, and actually there's two versions of the audio book, which it seems like most people like the second gal when they did a reread of it. I can't remember her name, but they're both good in their own way. What do you guys think of Katniss Everdeen? Jennifer Lawrence portrayal? Is Katniss a traditional hero?
Yeah. Well, I also am curious. This wasn't Jennifer Lawrence's first
No,
like big role.
no,
She was already
been doing
pretty
stuff.
big by then. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think so, but yeah, no, I think that she's not a traditional hero, and I mean, everyone loves her, and I do too. She becomes the big hero, but in this movie, especially in this one, and later on for a bit, she's not being she's more in survival mode in this whole thing. Everything she's doing is because she wants to survive for herself and for Prim. Um, the big turning point for her, I think, is Rue and what happens to Rue, which is
Right.
kind of when she's starting to soften before that with Peeta, of course. But Rue was the one that really got to her, partially because Rue reminded her of Prim.
Right.
But even a little bit later, and I don't want to spoil too much because Darin's never seen them, but it goes on into the next movie as well, that she's very much just, I have to survive. I have to do whatever it takes to stay alive, and no one else is as important as me staying alive. So she's not a traditional hero, but she definitely becomes one. Even in this, she's, the quick thinker. She's the one who, without even meaning to, sparks something. I mean, it's just her drive.
I liked that actor in what I've seen her in. I know most people don't like Passengers, but I like that movie just for her portrayal of her.
Matthew's
character in that
laughing.
one.
That's a good movie, though.
I
think
know.
that's an
I know.
overly
I
hated
agree.
movie.
I agree. It's a good
I think
movie.
that was an
I love
intriguing.
Silver Linings Playbook myself.
Well, that's
but-
another good one.
So I when I watched this movie, I wasn't surprised, although she seems a little more stilted acting wise in this movie, and maybe that's on purpose because
I think that's on purpose.
she's kind of
Yeah.
actor would, because she's playing a person who's not an actor who is forced to be an actor in this kind of serialized
Katniss-
environment she's in.
Yeah, even in the book,
so-
Katniss was very, Bob, you can back me up on this, but
yeah.
Katniss was very stilted, especially in the first book, because
Right.
Oh, okay.
she
Then she
doesn't
played
want
it
to
right
be
on.
there, and
It was
she's
dead on,
completely
so.
out of her depth for the first 2 weeks when they're in the Capitol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one of the questions I had on here, and Rachel, we can jump to you next, is like, one of the questions I wanted to pose, talking about Katniss Everdeen, is I think that the movie does obviously soften Katniss from how she was in the book. I mean, a lot. I mean, I think it kind of, as bad as it looks, if you haven't read the books, but you've seen the movie, it looks pretty bad. It's very dystopian, that type of thing. But the book paints a much bleaker picture.
I love her, especially because she's, I think, like, kind of unlikable. I think that's like the best part of her. Like, I'm not a fan of like a Captain America, Superman type, hero of a story. They're like always my least favorites.
I know.
I really like when someone is like, you can kind of see their flaws a little more and you can like relate to them a little more. Like, I feel like she feels very like human, and especially like a human put into like very bad circumstances. So I think I really love that she's like not a perfect hero, not
Right.
just like a victim of the story. She's like a full character, like a human.
I think comparing her to the book from the movie, I think it translates well. I think that's a credit more to Jennifer Lawrence's acting capabilities than anything. Because I was doing research for a future question that we have on our on our notes here on casting, and I know it was a big struggle to find the right Katniss, and apparently some of the other runner-ups for this was like Shailene Woodley, some of the other female stars at the time, and I don't think any of them
Shailene
would've-
Woodley ended up getting her
as
Yeah.
Divergent, right?
Divergent.
And,
yeah.
and I don't think she would have served the role well. So I think Jennifer Lawrence did a really great job. I could see where Darin's coming from, that her acting's maybe a little bit wooden, even though
But
the
see,
character
now you're
is supposed
saying
to
that
be
that's
that.
the way it should have been. I'm saying she's even a better actress than I thought she was. So there you go.
Well, but it's, I don't know. When you're reading the book, it makes sense, but on screen, I could see how, like, if you haven't read the book, it does come off as a little bit wooden, and maybe it is compared to even the other 3 films that come after this one. But I still think she does a really good job, and I think that she captures the essence of the character very well, especially contrasted to Josh Hutcherson as Peeta. So I like it, and I think it's a good character. It definitely spawned a generation of different young adult dystopian stories. Everybody went from Harry Potter to Twilight, and everybody thought Twilight was the next big thing, and it had its renaissance, but I think Hunger Games had a bigger lasting impact than Twilight in the long run because of what it spawned. The Hunger Games was kind of the genesis of that genre, and everybody was latching onto the next young adult dystopian female main character type of story.
I'm like trying to flash back to reading the books to remember the personality that she had, because I feel like Jennifer rewrote her. Like she's
definitely softer in the movie.
like she's not like, for Katniss in the books, it felt like she would literally do anything to save her family. She would do anything, any job, any hard work, anything to feed Prim, to feed Mom, to feed herself. The movie adaptation of her made her feel more like she was sulking about her family than she was working for her family, if that makes sense.
I
Like
could
they got
see
rid of
that.
the
Okay,
whole,
yeah.
they got rid of the whole, do you remember in the book, sorry, Darin, they had a whole scene where she goes to this trading hall, right? And
The Hob.
yeah, the hub, and she had like the whole pin thing, but that was like a whole scene, and they just chalked it up to, oh, that's a cool pin. Here you go, give it to me.
Well, yeah, and
You know?
that's
Yeah, well, I did make a note of that because that is a huge thing later on in the other books in Sunrise on the Reaping. But they eliminated the character completely, and I completely understand why. They already are full of characters that they're introducing, and introducing Madge, who was the governor or the mayor's daughter, who was friends with Katniss, and her grandmother was in the Quarter Quell, so that's how she had this pin. There's a huge story there, and I'm very curious. For those of you watching, this is a few months before Sunrise on the Reaping comes out in theaters. I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with that story, because in this version, instead of Madge having the pin, Greasy Say, the old woman at the Hob, she's
had
the
the
one who
pen.
gives.
Yeah. And there's a lot of characters they didn't bring over, and that's kind of the
Yeah.
next section is I kind of wanted to talk about, District 12 and how that was portrayed and Panem in general. And they didn't have Madge. Darin, I know it's like she's huge in the book. She gives Katniss the pen. Peeta's parents are pretty huge, at least in the book. And he just, makes some passing reference to him. You see his mom yelling at him. That was the one key scene that they kept in there was the how he threw the bread out there when she was starving. Kind of coming to the whole District 12, setting up Panem. How do you think they set up the world building?
I think it was captured well. It was obviously lower budget than I think.
Lionsgate,
obviously,
baby.
it's lower. It's Lionsgate, and it was the first film, and it, I think they weren't sure how well it was going to be received, and it was obviously received well. But you could, watching the later movies, you could feel the budget constraints in the first one. District 12 didn't feel as desiccated, I guess, as it should. Like the book, it just sounds like a horrible place to live in. And in the movie, it's just kind of like this podunky town in the middle of the woods, which is
prairie.
Yeah, it's it's not a bad place. I thought they captured the capital well, though, and you could definitely tell that's where a lot of the budget for the movie went. It felt very 1984 mixed with some cosmopolitan themes, which was at least how I took it in the book. I think it was probably a bit more elaborate in my mind when I read it the first time, but I don't think that it was a bad aesthetic choice with the way they went with the capital in this first film. I do think that there was some missed opportunity to show more of District 12. Again, I think that just comes back to the budget constraints, but overall, I think they captured the vibe as best they could.
I think they established everything really well, in my opinion. Like, I feel like you do get a good sense of, the world, and they put a lot of like exposition in a really short amount of time. I know I haven't read these books, but the goal of the book or any book versus the goal of a movie is just kind of different. Where the movie, they want the general audience, you don't have to know every detail, but they want to make it like marketable. So I think, them cutting down things and it being like not quite as detailed as the book is just like, if people are sitting around listening to every detail, a lot of people that aren't as into it aren't going to stay for it, But I think, with that like goal in mind, that they did a really good job of putting you in there, but also like keeping the pace going, you're not slowing down the same way you can if you're sitting down to read.
I think when I first saw, I'm going back to the movie, envisioning the movie when after she takes her bath and she comes down off the porch and she starts walking down the street, I was like, this is not District 12. This is
an
not
episode of Swamp People.
Yes. It literally felt like a country town, but like District 12 feels like a normal town, just really, really poor. Like I almost envisioned it to look more like the hub area, more like the town square area. Yeah, like hustling and bustling with merchants, with scammers, with pickpockets, stuff like that. And then to see, and I remember reading about her going hunting and having to like crawl through the gate or whatever, right? And walk into this forest. And the forest, I mean, in the book, it feels finite. In the movie, it feels infinite. It feels like she has no barrier there. She can just keep going. There's like nothing really telling you she can't.
I'm going to
Like,
disagree with Cara on that.
Really?
That point.
How dare
I think
you?
so. I think so too, actually. I think it was that, because they
Really?
talked about escaping in the book too.
Yeah, she always was like, I'm going to run away and there's nothing that can stop me. And what's beyond these woods? And it's like, I don't know. I thought that.
Yeah, but the
it
woods,
just
the way they were
What's outside
presented,
of Pleasantville?
though,
What's outside of Pleasantville?
the way the woods
Right.
were presented visually in the movie, they did look infinite. The only way we were told in the movie that, if you tried, you wouldn't get very far. But visually, they were shown to be, it just keeps going and you could keep going. It's like they had to verbally tell you, no, there's guards in there and there's this and that, and then you wouldn't get very far. But like I said, visually, if the books presented it as finite, the movies visually presented it as infinite. I agree with that.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah. I think the Capitol, when they come out of the tunnel after watching Zootopia, I was like, try everything. it was just playing in my mind. But yeah, I loved how they presented the Capitol. I love how they presented the suite when they get there, and they have like their whole penthouse thing, and how Effie's like, "You're the 12th district, so you get the penthouse. So it's so fabulous." And it's all like, what I didn't like was how they presented. So you remember in the book how they had talked about the servants and how they had their tongues cut out, right?
The
But
Avox.
in
the
the
Avoxes.
movie, they just had like some of them had a cage over their head, right? Or am I
Mm.
thinking of something else?
No,
I
that's
didn't see a
that was
cage,
in the
but they were just
second movie that they did it
Right.
that way.
yeah.
But like,
yeah, the Avoxes were a bigger thing in the book that they didn't do in the movie.
I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
watch the books. I'm gonna read the books by next week. Too.
they're really good. I mean, I definitely agree with
I'm getting
Matthew.
that.
I definitely agree with Matthew on his past point of like, it feels like a first book. Like this feels like she's really like grinding out all of the fine details.
Yeah.
And then by the later books, it's like she's on a roll. She knows where this story's going. She was kind of like figuring out where she wanted to go in the first book, but
Yeah.
regardless.
Actually, I'm very curious. This actually is a good segue because I want to talk about the reaping, but I definitely want to hear what Darin thought of it because, as I've said, not to belabor the point, but you haven't seen the movies, any of them, so you
I
don't
haven't
know
seen
what's
any
coming.
of the movies. I haven't read any of the books.
So, yeah,
only
so
watched the
I'm
one
very
movie
curious
now,
to
yeah.
think.
This is the first movie Darin's ever watched.
Ever watched. I've been lying as a podcast.
That's not true
guest
because
the
I've
whole
watched
time.
I've watched movies with Darin.
No,
Robot
I just
Shots.
mean the
That's all I've
first movie.
seen. Robot Shots.
This is yeah. No, this is the first Hunger Game, the first movie that of the Hunger Games. It's his complete
Yes,
introduction, and I'm very curious to see what you think of the reaping and of Effie because she becomes a very important character. But I'm curious to see what your thoughts are
Well,
based on what you know.
I mean, Effie, as she was presented in her introduction here in the movie, was an entirely one-dimensional character as presented on screen. Whether she becomes more three-dimensional later on or in the books, I don't know. But as she's presented, she's a very one note, but that note is very, very distinct in contrast to where she was at that moment. She's walking down that little dirt road and she's like, you could just tell she was keeping her arms in like, ew, don't get it on me. And, Cara was talking about, Rachel was actually talking about the details in the book that described what they were doing. I think in the movie, they also had little things that just for split seconds in the background that kind of showed how the Capitol and how the ruling body treats or sees these districts. The one little flash and you miss it was as they were setting up the big jumbotron stage in District 12 for the reaping. You see one guy who's clearly one of the workers of the Capitol or was brought in to set this thing up was spraying down the steps in this sense of like, oh, we got to clean this crap up. We can't present this. This has got to go. So we got to do something about this. And so even in this kind of presentational facade they were setting up, they still had to kind of, in a literal way, wipe away the District 12-ness of it all. All those little things in the background were very telling about how the Capitol and the ruling class felt and towards District 12 and presumably all the rest of the districts as well. I think the reaping itself that's where the kind of the thinly veiled allegory, the thinly veiled political commentary comes in of like, let the poor fight themselves, keep them poor enough that they have no chance. I mean, they have that scene with President Snow and whatever the producer guy was,
Seneca Crane.
I don't know how they did that as first person in the books, but
They didn't.
Okay. And so they inserted it into the movie because, again, thinly veiled requires exposition. So therefore, the president has to spell it out, which is you can't, you can give them hope, but you can't give them too much. That's why we don't just mow them down with machine guns. And make it fast and that's why there's a winner, because everyone has to have the hope that they're the one in a billion that gets to be in the penthouse and live the high life, and let everybody else fight literally to the death for that one hope, and forget about all rising up together collectively, because that would be the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah, but by default,
dissuade them of that.
The whole thing about the Hunger Games, though, to me, just invites like more uprising. I mean, just like what it is. It's like I always was like, well, what did you expect?
Well, that's
you're right. I mean, I don't have 74 years of being beat down, and we know after Ballad and Songbirds of Snakes, which I won't reveal that to Darin, we know why they came up with the Hunger Games, but. Anyway,
it's also very important, like right at the beginning of the Reaping, when they show that movie that was produced by the Capitol, and the Capitol presents itself as like a savior. You have to thank us. You should appreciate what we give.
Oh, that's the PR of it. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, but that's the point. Like people, it's easy to say we would be uprising if this was happening in the real world, but we're talking about through the lens of people who haven't had to live in that situation.
It's just not as thinly veiled. It is much more complex and much more integrated and much more, lack of a better word, sophisticatedly buried in the substrate of our society. This whole idea of if you get your enemies fighting each other, you don't have to worry about them fighting you. Being the ruling class.
And that's why that line, even though it wasn't in the book, it is such an important line that Snow says to Seneca Crane. A little bit of hope is a good thing. Too much hope is dangerous. And, I mean, that's.
But they had to spell it out in the movie because they didn't have the same kind of length to discuss it.
In the book, everything is told from Katniss' point of view, so nothing that happens without her is in the book. Seneca doesn't even appear, like he's mentioned, but he doesn't appear in the book at all.
Well, and President Snow is not in the book.
President Snow is barely in it, yeah.
He's in the book barely at all. So
in the book, does she witness his speeches and things?
Yeah, he's there, but he doesn't have a major role in the first book. He basically appears in those announcements, and he appears at the very end to crown her.
And Rachel said that the movies and books have to be structured differently to get things across. Sure, and I think that was having Snow and Seneca have this kind of off to the side discussion in the movie made sense to kind of drive the point home of what the Hunger Games, in a general sense, we're trying to do from the elite class's point of view of like, why don't we just shoot them? It's like, here's why.
Yeah, because they have to have hope. And that's why the Reaping is such a great scene. From my point of view, it's so well done because you can feel that tension. They barely have any music in the background. Almost all of it is very stark and silent because, how would you feel if you're a kid walking to join a lottery and they barely talk about it at all in the movie. They give a couple of throwaway lines that like Gale has 42 entries in there, but they don't talk about the rules about how many entries you get, where the book there's a whole set of rules.
Was the Tesseract, was that food from the Capitol, and that's why they I couldn't remember that.
Yeah, it was like rice from the Capitol.
And it was still very meager. Yeah, it was still very meager rations, but if you didn't have that, you basically were going to starve. There was barely, Katniss's family survived because she was a good hunter. But
they didn't explain that in the movie of like you could increase your chances of being picked for some sort of
At the-
benefit to
or some
yourself or
food.
family. Yeah.
Yeah, like that
Yeah.
scene where she tells him, she's like, "Don't take any more, stuff. Just get."
Yeah.
Like when Katniss is saying bye.
Yeah, she
she's
says it's
like,
not worth it,
Oh,
entering
yeah,
your
it's not
name
worth
more.
it putting your name in more time.
Yeah.
So they
So it's
do
a
gloss it.
throwaway line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we also said was how the District 12 isn't really shown much, and yeah, you can tell that also from the book. Katniss lives in what's called the Seam, which is the poorest area of an already poor town. Peeta, because his family were bakers and they have a business, they were still poor, but not nearly as poor as Katniss. And this is all stuff that we don't get in the movie at all, which is a shame. But I was also looking forward to hearing what you thought of Effie, because I think the word you said before was tone deaf, which is perfect. Yeah, just the way she is.
Every
you should be so excited.
Well, but she's like, she's not acknowledging. She's acknowledging the pomp and circumstance and pageantry of what's going on, and the status that is being imbued on Peeta and
Katniss.
Thank you,
Katniss.
yeah,
and she's completely focused on that and not on the fact that
every time she opens her mouth,
death.
it's like, oh, yeah, don't worry about. She never acknowledges. Oh, yeah, you're gonna have a chance to kill each other later. Isn't that great? She never. It's like, here, look at the gold chairs and have a chocolate.
The mahogany table.
That's mahogany. It's like, no, don't worry about. You just tried to stab somebody. Don't hurt the mahogany. It's like, come on. But that's what I mean by the one-dimensional nature of her character and her point of view, I guess. Her purposeful.
We have to come back to that next movie.
Peeta and Gale, hot or not, Team Peeta, Team Gale. I thought Elizabeth Banks was probably did the best to the book of the character, I think, to me, anyway. I just want to say that. Anyway, Rachel, what do you think? Peeta, Gale, you can jump in on Haymitch, Effie, Cinna, Caesar, Flickerman. I mean, we got like a ton of characters to get into.
Well, in terms of like the actors, I mean, I think they all did good. I mean, I can't say how it went from the books, but I think just watching the movies, they all had a very clear take on their characters. I think they did good with the acting. For Peeta and Gale, I'm like the biggest Gale hater ever. I can't stand him. I can't stand anything he says. It's like, and I am also like a Twilight fan, like that was mentioned before. And it is kind of like, it's the same kind of thing where they throw in Jacob because they know, everyone wants the love triangle, but it's like, she's not going to choose him. She's not going to choose Gale because
Even though she should have chosen Jacob. Bella should have chosen Jacob. 100%, especially to the
on
book.
A baby? He imprinted on a baby.
Okay, I'm saying aside from Renesmee, that in the book at least, Jacob, the way he treated her in the book, he was the better option. Anyway, sorry, we don't want to go on.
The only reason he had any attraction to her is because she was pregnant with Renesmee. He had even proved it after she was born.
That's the thing, because then I'm like, aren't you attracted to Edward then too? It's both of them. So what do you mean by that? Like, he's crazy. But yeah, same with like Gale. Like, I think it was
I haven't read the Twilight books either. So.
They're good.
They're not good.
Gale was never an option, never should have been an option. I think Peeta is great. And like, I was rewatching the first movie last night and I was saying, even if they didn't do their scheme with the Nightlock, like he was about to like stab himself in the next 2 seconds to save her. Like there was no question for Peeta. And Gale didn't even volunteer. I know like maybe you could say he wanted to stay and protect the families and stuff, but I don't know. There's something to him not volunteering for her that's just like, it was wrong right away. I didn't like how he was talking in the first scene.
He can't volunteer for her. It was gender-based, right?
No.
Only
he could have volunteered. And that's what I thought too. I'm like, if he really loved Katniss, he would have taken Peeta's place right from the
Yeah.
get-go.
That he
Yeah.
could have gone with her to protect her, and then
Yeah,
at
but
the
then-
end killed himself. That's
Oh,
romantic.
at the end, killed himself. I see.
Well,
they
also,
didn't have the Nightlock plan until they were in the actual arena.
Yeah.
yeah.
That they knew
And
Nightlock
Katniss
existed. Yeah,
used-
that's a-
Right, but they didn't know if the actual arena was going to have it though, because they design each arena, right?
Oh, yeah. She never had that
could've-
as a plan.
He could have gone
Right.
there to protect her, and then with the idea that he's not going to survive. That
Yeah.
would have
True.
been, then I would have rooted for him. But
But
he,
something.
he's
But
like,
one of the things that they
not gonna
mentioned in the book
sacrifice himself.
also that wasn't in the movie was that Peeta has a whole bunch of brothers and none of them volunteered for him either. And they also mention in the movie, but one of the things that's very important in the book is that when he's talking to his mother after the reaping, and she's like, he says District 12 might finally have a winner, and his mother says, yeah, but it's not going to be you.
And that's something to be said for Gale. Sorry, Rachel, and I'm going to get back to you. Is the whole thing of like, I agree. I'm like, Gale could have volunteered. However, again, in the book, and they only make little tidbit comments, is he does have a huge family and he's their sole provider in the book. Like his mom's a pretty big character and his family is there. And so I think that's why, to be fair, I think that's also
He had
why
five
he
siblings, or four,
Yeah.
five
Yeah,
siblings.
he didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Rachel, go ahead.
there's also though, like if you want to say that in that first scene, he really says, "Let's run away." She says, "What about our families?" He's like, "We can bring them or not." He does say, or maybe not.
Really?
Like,
Yeah.
I'm
yeah,
gonna have to go back.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. He says, "Because
I'm gonna rewatch the rewatch.
I rewatched
Because she was talking
that
about Prim.
afterwards because I was like, yeah. She said, "What about Prim? What about your family?" He said, "Well, they can come or like not. I guess it's not. He just doesn't
He
care
was
enough.
being
to
a typical
sacrifice.
teen boy at that moment. He was not.
That's fine. But there was
I
no
don't
like
think
love.
he was saying what he actually meant to say.
There was
He was
no
saying what he
love,
wanted to say.
and he's known them. Like it seems like they've been, kind of a thing or friends for like a long time. They've known each other and been close, and he wouldn't do that. But Peeta, after not knowing her that long, all things considered, was so ready. He was literally like, "Okay, shoot me right now." He
Yeah.
was so ready.
Well, he threw her the bread.
yeah.
He threw her the bread in the street, and I don't think
Team
they mentioned
Peeta.
it. But I don't think they
Peeta
mention it in the
armor.
movie.
Peeta armor.
I don't think they mention it in the movie. Maybe they do in a later one, but he burnt the bread on purpose because he
Yeah, he
wanted to
did.
give it to
And
her.
the
He
later
did.
one they
Yeah.
talk about.
Gale is a big brother, not a boyfriend.
Yeah.
He's a big brother. I think Peeta, I don't know. I struggle with Peeta too. I think the point where I started to like him in the movies, like I loved him in the book. But in the movie, he just made me mad until the plan where Haymitch and Peeta were like, we have to make you likable, and Peeta's going to help you do that because people like Peeta. He is a people person.
Well, he understood the game. He understood how
right.
Yeah.
He
that game
understands
needed
how to
played.
be
So when he
suave and how
says
to be
he
smooth.
loved her and he's like, yeah, she came here with me.
Yeah.
The movie
Yeah.
doesn't
I
get
think
that
that was
across
genius.
very easily. I mean, if the book did, that's fine.
It doesn't
Yeah.
get what
From my
across.
impression, it doesn't.
How
it doesn't get
intelligent
across.
he is.
Yeah, and how well he's
yeah.
at playing the game, because she was the one who had to tell him throw the dumbbell ball at the thingy because you're super strong. You have to show him that.
Throw the thing.
She's the one who
Yeah.
told him to do that. So he wasn't working that out. I am surprised that how did the evil alliance of kids not immediately shank him the moment he said, "Hey guys, I can help you find, Katniss." Shank. It's like, I'm
Well,
surprised that
they
didn't
did
happen
talk about it.
immediately.
Yeah.
I'm
Glimmer
surprised
said
he
that.
was. I'm surprised
Glimmer
he was
did
walking
say
around
that
with
to
him.
Kato.
at
She was
all.
like, why don't we just kill him now?
I'm kind of with Cara on this one. Neither one of them has. I mean, Peeta's more redeeming, right? Gale's kind of a piece of shit.
Gale's just Gale.
but I'm
He's
gonna
a guy.
I'm gonna spoil a little bit for Darin. I don't like how Peeta's arc ended in book 3. I felt like that was really, really forced for Katniss to end up with him. I mean, I know she built it up, and
Rachel's looking pissed.
well, but she's when you read the book and the epilogue, and it pissed me off because Peeta did deserve somebody who loved him, and it felt like Katniss was reluctant to love him, and I think that's what bugs me about Peeta's character overall, is that he does he lays his life down for her, and she cares for him in
Like
her
Jacob.
own way.
Jacob Black.
No, all right, no.
No. Never.
Jacob's a cuck, and I'm
So true. That's so true.
and he's a pedophile.
You know what?
for
I am
Yes.
something on a
Jake,
child.
I'm Team Jacob. I always will be. Hang on, Matthew. I'm going to let you go right after this. I'm going to say this right now. The whole Renesmee imprinting thing was a total gimme because they had to have him end up with somebody attached to Bella. The same way the Gale thing, I'm going to give it out right here, how, they had to break off Katniss and Gale, so she wrote that whole piece of plot line to basically end that, so you knew she was going to end up with Peeta. They're all forced plot points to kind of, again, it's like gimmies. It's like, well, now Katniss can end up with Peeta free and clear of Gale, and it's like, I bet she saw with Twilight, she saw the fan base was like, wow, they really like Jacob, and they really like Jacob and Bella together, and so anyway, sorry, go
Nobody
ahead.
liked Jacob and Bella together, but regardless,
I always liked Jake. Go ahead.
anyway, I like Peeta as a character, and I think he's a good guy, and I think he deserved better, and I think that's my issue with the character, is that Katniss did not give him what he needed. She did a lot in books 2 and 3, right? And they end up together, and they have kids together, but if you go back and you read the epilogue of Mockingjay, she's like, well, Peeta wanted a couple of kids, so I had to give it to him, and I was like, okay, what are we doing here? I mean, Peeta is willing to die for you and went through hell and back, and she's, I don't know. Anyway, the love triangle was stupid. Gale effectively killing Prim. Spoilers, Darin. Sorry, I can't help it. I mean, that really shoehorns him into get out of the story at that point, right? You don't want Gale to end up with Katniss, and I think the love triangle was a bit contrived. I think Katniss stands on her own 2 feet, and she didn't need a love interest overall. I think that's what bugs me about both the characters, is they're a means to an end for a plot device.
Well, no, I get it. Again, strictly from the movie, obviously. Gale was definitely had kind of this, I've known you for a long time, and I know all about you, and I could be a love interest, but the movie didn't push that. He was like, she's just, whatever your name is, take care of my sister. That's, it's like, that was the end of, from the movie's point of view, at least, was the end of that relationship as far as I was concerned.
Well,
Peeta,
you could see he was jealous whenever she...
yeah, they did a few flashbacks to him and his reaction and stuff like that. But I again, even with that, I didn't see this massive fiery jealousy in his eyes. And again, this movie is not subtle, and they were maybe being a bit too subtle for what I was expecting from this movie in his reactions, showing jealousy. But I didn't see a lot of investment in Gale in this particular movie. Not a lot. Peeta, I felt, was also very forced, because Peeta presented himself specifically to her as, I can't protect you. I can't provide for you. I'm not your equal. And then she goes and gives him basically a pity lay, for lack of a better word. I mean, in the movie there, it's like, yeah,
Well,
throw him a bone, I guess.
Yeah,
throw him a bone. But it's just, their relationship also didn't feel like it should happen. He was not her equal on any level. And I agree with Matthew. She stands on her own. She should be the one choosing, and not just,
well, she does,
submitting to the whims of the plot. for companionship or whatever, or obligation. I don't know how the other books play out or the movies play out, but we'll see. But I didn't see either male love interest or character as anything she should concern herself with. I just didn't see it. Yeah, that was the impression the movie gave me. But because they needed some sort of romantic entanglement, they gave it to Peeta.
So, Rachel, what do you think of Haymitch, Effie, Cinna, or Caesar? Just all the supporting characters.
I think all the actors do really well with it. Especially for the first movie, you don't get too much like different dynamics from them because there's a lot kind of squeezed in. But I know, even when I first watched it, I always liked Haymitch and Cinna. And I think Caesar and Effie are very effective at what they're there for, especially in this movie. They're there for setup, really. And I think they set up the Capitol really well. They ignore, all the important things. And I think they do it in a way that's kind of like real things that we see all the time. I don't think it's that much more of a parody, of real life. I think it's pretty accurate. I think it's good for the story.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like that they definitely develop a lot more. All of them, Cinna kind of has the least chance to develop more, and Caesar, but he's always there to remind you of what the Capitol is.
Right.
Cinna was great. I thought
Cinna was awesome.
His character was so good within all of the movies. I don't remember his name, but he played him very well. I think
Lenny Kravitz.
Lenny Kravitz as Cinna.
Yeah, he was really good. I think Seneca, it was easy to hate him, which is good. He did his job. I like how he looked. I like how they designed him to look capital and to look like a game master. He looked different from everybody else. He didn't look like just another capital person. Loved Effie. I think her and Haymitch are my two favorite characters of the supporting characters. They are my two favorites. I love their chemistry. I love Effie's character development throughout the movies. Same thing with Haymitch. I think casting Woody Harrelson as Haymitch was a brilliant choice. I was just actually looking up to see who was in the running, and if this is true, John C. Reilly was going to be considered for Haymitch, and I think Woody Harrelson knocked it out of the park. I think that would have been a completely different story if he was cast. So I love his character in the first movie. He played it perfectly to the book. If he had went, I haven't seen any interviews of his from the actual first movie, but if he had not read the books, I would have been surprised because he played it pretty spot on. Same thing with Effie. Effie looks great. Effie acted great. She acted she acted very pompous, very don't touch me. And the whole thing with the mahogany, that's mahogany. Be careful. That's, that's expensive and you can't even afford it. Loved her character. I loved, why am I forgetting his name? The interviewer.
Seneca Crane.
No,
Caesar Flickerman.
Yeah, Caesar Flickerman. So good. I loved who they cast. He was perfect. He played it so well. The laugh was perfect. The interviewing, the emotion, the acting choices that he chose, he made that character his own, and I thought that was really good.
Woody Harrelson took a minute to grow on me as Haymitch. Not who I pictured. Felt like he wasn't haggard enough. Not that Woody Harrelson's pristine looking, but I figured I got more of a Nick Nolte vibe when I read the book. Just a bit more gruff and more I don't know, maybe even Gary Busey, just kind of like more far gone.
How long
just
ago
the way
was he meant to have won the game?
25
24
years. Yeah,
Jeez.
24.
He's-
He was in the 50th.
yeah.
He's been
so
cynical
I
that
imagine,
long? Wow.
No,
Well-
no, you have to go read the book.
You got to read
okay.
Sunrise on the.
Okay.
That's what Sunrise on the Reaping is. It's about his character when he was young at his games. That's what that book
dang.
is.
Okay.
But he grew on me, and I definitely think he came into his own in Catching Fire. And then Elizabeth Banks was perfect as Effie. I'm not going to give any notes on that. Lenny Kravitz was not what I was expecting as Cinna. I still don't really love his performance in this movie. I don't think he fit the character right. I did some research to see who else was in the running, and there was nobody. The director, Gary Ross, basically did a no audition for the part and picked Lenny Kravitz. And I thought that was interesting because when I read it, it feels more, he almost feels more sage-like, and Lenny Kravitz
And that's
felt
what
more
I
like
think it is.
But it's in the movie, that's not what I get. I get this hip.
I know, but I think it was
rocker.
written that way in the movie. The book was written sage-like, and
Sure.
I don't think it's Lenny Kravitz.
No, so I don't think he fit the part well. He did fine, but when I read it, I get more of kind of like a, I don't know. I had some examples and now I've lost them. The only one I
Yoda
can think
were
of
a
right now
makeup
is, like,
artist?
James. No, more elfin, I guess, like James McAvoy in Narnia type of vibe, a bit more knowing
Mr.
of the
Tumnus?
world. Yeah, a bit more like, oh, this is how the world is and I'm going to protect you from it type of a thing. Stanley Tucci was perfect as Caesar as well. I don't have any notes on that. So overall, and I love watching Stanley Tucci. I think he's the best supporting character out of the cast, at least in the first movie.
I did like what the movie presented as Haymitch's arc in this movie specifically, where they showed him, again, thinly veiled, very, very transparent themes, but the fact that they showed him being overly drunk and cynical to begin with, which was like, you guys are gonna die, ta-da! Kind of thing, to him actually refusing a drink while talking to her one time, like refusing a refill and being like, no, I'm really focused on her right now. I'm really invested here. So those little things that happen and his subtle changes, the way the actor played the character throughout this movie specifically, showed that he was becoming more invested. By the end, he wasn't as lovey-dovey and directly supportive as Lenny Kravitz was. But he still had this arc of like, okay, she might actually have a shot. Okay, I actually care again about what's going on. So I like that. Again, I've already said a lot about Effie, where she's just spot on for what her character was meant to portray in this world.
Yeah.
To the audience. Absolutely fantastic, over the top, crystal clear, just refreshingly clear. Contrast to Katniss's perspective of this world, and just every side eye you could possibly get from Katniss was going directly at Effie, like, what the every time she opened her mouth. So love that. Didn't really have, Stanley Tucci, again, I personally like Stanley Tucci as well, so I enjoyed him in this movie just for being Stanley Tucci. Whether his character was book accurate or whether he has an arc in the first coming movies, I don't know. But he's just chews up the scenery every time he's in something. I love him. For as little that we got to see of Donald Sutherland, I like Donald Sutherland too. He played this perfect, for as much as he was on screen and allowed to portray it, he gave this perfect statesman with a nefarious undertone, vibe perfectly, of like, hey, I can stand at the podium and and give all the propaganda, out my ass all day long. But, here's the real story, here's what's really going on. And that's the game I'm playing. So, Don't let the fancy suits and big arenas fool you. You know, there's a job to be done here. As far as quelling the masses, and that's what we're all about.
I'm a huge fan of Woody Harrelson to begin with. I mean, I've been a fan of his since Cheers. But so I don't know if I would say he's exactly what I expected based on the book, but I love what he did with the character. And it makes me want to see Sunrise to the Reaping that much more because I love Woody Harrelson's performance. I already talked a little bit about Effie, and she's a perfect example of, how the Capitol relates to the people in District 12. But I also, without spoiling anything, I love how important her character becomes later on. Same thing with Cinna. I agree. Lenny Kravitz isn't he doesn't translate to the book, but I do love the way Lenny Kravitz plays him. Kind of, as I think Matthew said, he's rather than being like a sage, he's more like a rock star. And isn't that what you said? And I kind of get that because without spoiling it, Cinna is another very important character who he's just understating who he is, but it's all a show. He may be one of the most passionate people in the cast, and then Stanley Tucci has quickly become one of my favorite actors of all time, much like John Lithgow, who I've talked about many times, because Stanley Tucci is a chameleon. He completely changes who he is. I mean, just compare Caesar Flickerman to Dr. Erskine in Captain America, the First Avenger, or pick your Stanley Tucci character and you compare the two, and he's almost unrecognizable. And to me, that's what I look for in an actor. And on that note, I know that we're going to split this discussion into two parts. We're going to continue talking about this next week. I want to thank all the viewers and subscribers. If you haven't already, please hit like and subscribe. I want to thank Darin and Matthew and Cara and Rachel and Bob for being here with me. And as always, make tomorrow better than yesterday.